Hey y'all, it's AJ here, and welcome back to my channel, Wandering with God. If you are new, I come on this platform to share revelations that the Lord gives me as I am growing into a deeper relationship with Him. So, I am back with another video about surrendering, and today we will be discussing surrendering to God's pivots, a.k.a. His disruptions. And we'll be taking lessons from Mary, the mother of Jesus. Our passage today can be found in Luke 1, verses 26 through 38. And I'll be reading from the New King James Version. Now, per usual, I will not be reading the entire passage, so I highly recommend that you go back and read the entire chapter for yourself, as it's so moving and powerful. So let's go ahead and get started. Verse 26. Now in the 6th month, the angel Gabriel was sent by God to a city of Galilee named Nazareth, to a virgin betrothed to a man whose name was Joseph, of the house of David. The virgin's name was Mary, and having come in, the angel said to her, "Rejoice, highly favored one, the Lord is with you. Blessed are you among women." Now I'm jumping down to verse 30. Then the angel said to her, "Do not be afraid, Mary, for you have found favor with God. And behold, you will conceive in your womb and bring forth a son, and call his name Jesus. He will be great and will be called the Son of the Highest." Let's just put ourselves in Mary's shoes right now. She is getting this amazing announcement that she is going to bring forth God's Son, the Messiah. That's amazing. I mean, unbelievable. But let's go back to see when this call, or a.k.a. disruption, takes place. At the beginning of the passage, it says that Mary is betrothed to Joseph. What is a betrothal? So when I did some digging, I found that a betrothal is a legally binding agreement between two families, the family of the bride and the family of the groom, and they agree that these two individuals will wed at a future time and date. And so in my research, I found that the common time period for a betrothal is 12 months. 12 months from when the legally binding agreement is enacted to when the wedding ceremony and the marriage is consummated. So what happens during this time frame? Well, the groom typically uses this time to prepare the home for his bride on the day of the ceremony so she can go home with him. So whatever needs to be done for that, he's doing that during that time. Now, in turn, the bride is preparing her wardrobe, preparing housewares to take with her to her new home. She could also be going through a purification process in preparation for the wedding ceremony. And of course, plans are being made for the wedding ceremony itself. So that means a lot of things are already set in motion for her big day. So let's kind of bring it back home to us. Women, and even men, you have been dreaming of your wedding day for the longest time. You finally have your boo thing, y'all are engaged, and you have your wedding date set, and you are making all these plans and preparations for the big day. But in the midst of all that planning, God's like, skirt, hold on. I need you to put a pause on your plans, and I need you to give your body to me so that you can house my child and so that the Messiah can come forth Now, I don't know about y'all, but for me, that's a hard pill to swallow. You know the saying, first comes love, then comes marriage, then comes baby in the baby carriage. But no, God is saying all that's goes to the wayside. This is my new order of things for you. God is asking you to put a pause on your plans, give your body for pregnancy, and so you can birth this child and raise this child. And guess what? You also have to wait to consummate your marriage until after the child is born. Yeah, I you won't tell me I have to wait to do with my boo. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure about that. Anyway, but that's what God is essentially telling Mary that she's gonna have to do in order to carry out this call. So, what are some things we can learn about God's disruptions? The first thing God showed me is that He uses disruptions to reveal and strengthen our identity in Him. Hear me out. Let's go back to verse 28 where it says, "Rejoice, highly favored one." Mary wasn't favored because of the call. Mary was favored because of what was already inside of her. When I looked up favored in the concordance, it means to be made graceful. So I was like, okay, let me look up what does graceful mean. Of course, I saw definitions relating to beauty and elegance, but it also had definitions regarding being fluid, being agile, being adaptable, flexible. And that doesn't just apply to motion or movement, but that also applies to your mindset, your character. God needed someone who would be willing to be adaptable to His will, that they would be willing to modify their plans to carry out this great call. And perhaps Mary didn't know everything that she was in God's eyes, but God used this opportunity, this disruption, to show her just who she is in Him. And sometimes God uses uncomfortable situations for us, pressure, whatever the situation may be, to reveal what is inside of us so that we may know who we are in Him. The second thing that God revealed to me about disruptions is to show just how mighty and powerful He is. At times when I am caught up in my routine and I've hit a stride and I'm just, going with the day to day, I can sometimes put God in a neat and tidy box. Okay. And He will bust out that box to remind me who's in control and just how vast His ways are. And also the fact that His plans for me can also supersede or exceed what I think of myself. He can have greater dreams and plans for me that I can't even fathom for myself. So He uses these opportunities to show that to us. The third thing that He revealed to me is that He uses disruptions for course correction. He uses some things that, again, may make us uncomfortable, may not make sense, to capture our attention so that we can make the necessary pivots to be in full alignment for His will. And sometimes we may think we are going in God's directions, but He needs us to be on His specific path to get to where He needs to go. And this is all summed up in Proverbs 16 verse 9, where it says, "A man's heart plans his way, but the Lord directs his steps." So we know that Gabriel goes on to tell Mary how she's going to conceive, all the great things that her cousin Elizabeth is experiencing as well. And the very last thing that Gabriel tells Mary is that in verse 37, for with God, nothing will be impossible. So, what is Mary's response to all of this? She says in verse 38, behold the maidservant of the Lord, let it be to me according to your word. Wow. So, what can we take from this? The first thing we can learn from Mary is her humility. Mary had to already possess humility to receive this call and to endure this call. Now, how do I know that Mary had or possessed humility? Well, just think about it. After everything that Gabriel laid out for her that would be coming her way, she still referred to herself as a maidservant. Now, what is a maidservant? A maidservant, of course, is a female slave or a female bondservant, but it also refers to one who worships and submits to God. And this call that Mary receives could have easily been a stroke to her ego. It could have easily made her head big. And she could have adopted an air of arrogance, like, oh, look at me, I'm blessed and highly favored, I got this. But no, she maintains a heart posture of humility. And this is a lesson that we can learn, because sometimes God's disruptions can lead us to positions of elevation. But God wants us to stay humble so that we remember who's in control and who our source is, because apart from him, we can do nothing. The second thing we can learn from Mary is her agility. Now, how do we know that she has agility? Well, let's go back and look at the verse. It says, let it be to me according to your word. Now, as we discussed earlier, agility again applies to your mindset, being quick and resourceful and having an adaptable character. She's saying, let it be to me, despite risking my marital status. Let it be to me, despite risking my life. Because back then, if she were found guilty of infidelity, she could have been stoned back then. I mean, just from, an onlooker's eye, could be like, oh, she could have stepped out on her husband-to-be. And again, she could have been stoned from that. Let it be to me, despite enduring shame. How do you explain an unplanned pregnancy to your mother, your father, your friends, your family, when you haven't even reached your wedding day yet? Explain that. Let it be to me, despite the fact that I'm going to have to modify my plans for my life, the vision that I had for my life. And what we can learn from her is that sometimes God's disruption will require our adaptability and our flexibility. God wants us to be able to mold and to use us even in uncomfortable situations that make absolutely no sense to us. And the third thing that we can learn from Mary is her trust in God's sovereignty. I do not believe that Mary could have made that bold and courageous statement of let it be to me according to your word unless she trusted in God. I firmly believe that she held on to that promise that for with God, nothing will be impossible. And sometimes, again, when we encounter disruptions, we will have to trust God's sovereignty when it doesn't make sense. when it disrupts our life. Now, let's be clear. Surrendering to God's disruptions is a choice. You can either lean into it and embrace it while trusting in God's sovereignty, or you can reject it. The choice is yours. What will it be? I hope this message resonates with you. Please give it a thumbs up and leave a comment. What are your thoughts on this? I will see you in the next video. Bye.